Love this podcast? Support this show through the Acast supporter feature. It's up to you how much you give, and there's no regular commitment. Just click the link in the show description to support now.
Strictly for the culture. Brothers and sisters, you have seen the t-shirts, the hats, the hoodies, the mugs in the hands of some of your favorite pro wrestling stars, podcasters, and influencers out there. And now it's time. Visit strictlyfortheculture.ca and you too can be part of the movement. Bigger than sweatshirts and commercial success, Strictly for the Culture aims to build with like-minded people and elevate their position in the world through knowledge, self-love, and a desire to unite. So what are you waiting on? Visit strictlyfortheculture.ca. Do it for the love. Do it for the knowledge. Most importantly, folks, do it strictly for the culture.
You're locked in.
Look at what we have here, folks.
To the only show that matters.
The cream of the crop.
Duke Loves Rasslin.
And there is no one that does it better than
your host.
I have come here to chew bubblegum and kick ass.
The Duke.
And I'm all out of bubblegum.
Brothers and sisters, welcome back to episode 4 of Devon and The Duke, a limited podcast series hosted by your main man, Duke Loves Rasslin, and the Hall of Famer himself, Mr. Devon Dudley. How you doing there, Devon?
I'm doing good, man. How you doing?
Well, Devon, I have to break some news to you here. The word is out, man. Devon Dudley is a good guy, a babyface in life. You know, not only did we have folks who saw you at the River City Wrestling Con, you had your baby with you, you had your wife with you, you know, you're doing the family thing. And now we have folks like Eric Bischoff putting you over and talking about how great of a guy you are. That's it, Devon. You're a good guy, man. Whoever the bad guy version of Devon Dudley is, I don't think you're going to be able to sell that too well anymore.
Well, being that I'm not wrestling anymore, that's probably a good thing. You know, now that I'm retired and, and this and that, and I don't know, being a bad guy. I mean, unless I went back and did it, the only place that I would ever wrestle for, other than what I'm going to be doing in November with Bubba for WrestleCade, the only place I would ever go back to wrestle for is WWE. That's it. I wouldn't go anywhere else to do it. And of course, TNA. I don't have any issues with TNA or anything like that. My heart is with WWE, and being that WWE is now doing something with TNA, now I can put TNA, that I would go back to TNA, but I don't see it happening. Everything that's in my tank is pretty much done. I had the 1,000 episode. I had a lot of fun doing that with Bubba. We tore the house down and we hit the greatest hits, which is what we were going to do. And we were thinking about doing a tour around the country, to hit the greatest hits and do that. And I don't think it's going to happen. I'm not saying it's out of the water, but I don't think it's going to happen. So, I just don't see me getting back in the ring unless it's WWE. And that ain't going to happen because I think we're way over the hill to go back to WWE. People say, oh, you guys look in great shape and this and that. It's one thing to look good, but it's another thing to have your body just broken up inside.
You know, I hear that 100%, Devon, and I understand, hey, you definitely want your body to be in working order, especially if you're going to be out there taking bumps. But when it comes to pro wrestling and retirement, the two don't mix. I'm thinking back to a great friend of yours in Terry Funk. That man retired how many times over, and yet he still managed to find himself in rings all over the world doing what he does best. So maybe it's a never say never when it comes to retirement?
Well, there's one thing you got to understand about Terry Funk, and I knew him on a personal level. That son of a bitch was crazy. God rest his soul. He was one crazy SOB, and I think he enjoyed pain. I think whatever was ailing him when he got in the ring, he kind of enjoyed it. And that's the way some wrestlers are. They enjoy that pain. They don't know how to handle themselves without the pain because they're so used to dealing with it for so many years. And then all of a sudden, when it stops, it's like they permanently hurt themselves so they can continue to feel that pain. I know a couple of people like that in the business that have done that and that have admitted it to me. But again, never say never. You're right. You never say never. But as of right now, and I've said this before, I've said I wasn't retired, and I said I was retired. I went back and forth until the 1000 episode, but I just feel that right now it might be the end for everything just because, the new generation now is doing a fantastic job, especially in WWE. I don't know if it'll take just hitting the greatest hits to keep up with these guys. These guys are so damn good in WWE right now. And I wouldn't want to do anything to cramp anybody's style in the ring. So, Bill Cosby said it best. When he ended the Cosby Show, he ended it on top. Ratings were still up. They weren't going down or anything. But he felt that he needed to get rid of the show before the ratings did start dropping. And people would say, damn, I don't even watch it anymore. It's not that good. It's not like it used to. He ended it before that happened. And that's the way I feel like it should be with us. We need to get out before we get to that point where people say, damn, they're too old. They don't need to be in the ring anymore. Because it will happen. It will happen. We can't stay young our whole lives. At some point in stage of the game, you got to say when it's over. You got to admit to yourself that it's over. Leave on a high note, Leave with, the WrestleManias, the TLC matches, and all those great matches that you had. Don't leave with a match that probably showed that you should have been gone years ago, and you decide to come back. I just don't want that to happen.
Wise words there from the Hall of Famer Devon Dudley, and I get it. I respect that. Makes perfect sense. Leave on a high note so people remember you, the best of you, as opposed to remembering the lesser version of you, so to speak. So, certainly understand that. As we said, Eric Bischoff was here on Duke Loves Rasslin, and he was very complimentary of you, just like you were about him previously. Eric talked about the fact that you're a great friend of his and how he loves running into you, and you always make him feel good. Your positive presence rubs off on him. After hearing that back, what did you think of what Eric had to say about you?
Well, I love Eric a lot. He's a very good friend of mine. I consider him a very good friend of mine. And Eric didn't know really a lot about my background until one day he was right next to me when we were doing an autograph signing. And I believe it was in Texas somewhere. And we started talking, and I don't know how it came up, but my background came up and things like that. And we just started talking and started going from there. And he was pleasantly surprised because he didn't know any of that. We knew each other before this conversation took place, but we never really indulged in each other's lives. So it was one of those things where it was cool that he realized, all the things that I had went through to get to where I am today. And he really appreciated it. He loved hearing the story. You could tell that he was quite intrigued by everything that I told him. And he was really taken back about my parents being reverends because he didn't know that. He also, said to me, he goes, that explains your demeanor and how you are. I said, yes. I said, you all got to understand, I grew up in Sunday school. I grew up in revival. I grew up in regular church, regular morning service, afternoon service. I grew up in all of that. So it wasn't something that I was uncommon to. And, if you didn't do what you were supposed to do, you got your butt whooped.
It's just wild to think about, man. You know, the preacher's kid, the church boy, grows up and he's putting people through flaming tables in ECW. You talk about a difference there. It just goes to show, never judge a book by its cover, and you never know what you're going to get from folks. And certainly the Hall of Famer here, Devon Dudley, is full of surprises. I wonder, Devon, the lessons that you learned, not only from your parents, but from being in the church and growing up with a religious background, do you feel that that's helped guide you through all of the challenges that come along with being in the wrestling business?
Absolutely. Even now as an adult, living life, my morals, how I feel about certain things, the respect, I should say, more importantly than anything. I mean, let me put it to you this way. There might be stuff I might be into that the next man might not be into or might not like. That each his own, in my opinion. But in terms of respect, I've learned to respect people and not sit there and pass judgment just because it doesn't fit my realm of things. When you go on social media and you say things or you put things out and somebody might not agree with what you're putting out or saying, so they get rude and, they say things that are not complimentary, and they sit there and say, well, I got freedom of speech and I'm allowed to say whatever I want. Yes, you do. You do. Grant you 100% you do. But being rude about it, no. You don't have the right to do that. Because if somebody did that to you, or if somebody did that to one of your family members, you'd be ready to fight. You'd be ready to take a gun and shoot them. There are things I see on social media that I don't agree with, but that doesn't mean I'm going to sit there and belittle that person, or I'm going to sit there and say something rude just to get a reaction from them. Those type of people are the people that don't have any lives, that they want the reaction so they can go back to their other friends and go, guess what? I said this to Devon on social media, and he responded and he said this. What an idiot. No, you're the freaking idiot. You're the jackass. It's like, for what? Like my son, there was a video that he saw online, and he put his 2 cents on what he felt about it, and it was rude. He told me about it, and he told me that when he said it, he was laughing, and I go, son, let me ask you a question. If somebody put something like that on your social media after whatever you put up there, you thought was okay to put up, but they thought indifferent. If they made the same comment to you that you just made to them, how would you feel? How would you feel if it was me that they said that to? How would you feel if it was your grandmother or your mother? And he sat there, he goes, yeah, you're right. I shouldn't have said that. I said, yeah, you really shouldn't have. I said, you really should go back and take that down, because there's a 50-50 chance that person might not have seen what you wrote. And there's a 50-50 chance that they did. But you have no idea how you can be towards a person when you say things like that. You never take in consideration their feelings. So again, there's a lot of people that listen to this, that's going to listen to this and go, you're absolutely right, Devon. But guess what? They're the ones doing it. That's the funny part. It's like the people in church, they're hypocrites. They'll sit there and tell you what you shouldn't do and what you shouldn't like, but then yet they do something they do the same thing you're doing, if not worse.
Devon Dudley coming with the life lessons. How about that for your Sunday, folks? That's why Devon and The Duke, we want to drop these on Sundays so that you get that extra dose of not only fantastic conversation about pro wrestling, but fantastic conversation about life. There's nothing wrong with that, and certainly, as they would say, this is food for the soul.
And I also, listen, what I'm saying is not going to change people's opinions. They're still going to say what they want to say and do what they want to do. But at the same token, I'm just saying, think about what you're saying before you write it. Think about the person that you're saying it to. Even if you don't like that person, so what? So what? Especially in the wrestling world. Listen, they had enough courage to go out there paid their money to the whatever wrestling school they went to, got taught how to wrestle good enough to where they got picked up by NXT. And from NXT, they went to the main roster. So you might not like them. You might not think that they're good wrestlers, but that don't mean you go and bash them and try to belittle them on social media. I just find that very disrespectful and wrong. And that's where my upbringing comes in, where I was taught not to do things like that. That just because you don't like something what somebody does, that doesn't give you the right to belittle or say anything terrible to them.
I agree 100%. And I mean, it really comes down to how you say it and what your true intentions are. So everyone listen out there, as a consumer, absolutely, you have a right to point out what you don't like and what you feel needs to improve because they're marketing to you. You know, this is something that is supposed to entertain you and make you feel comfortable enough to not only spend your time, but spend your money, your hard-earned money on these things. So certainly saying, hey, I didn't like that, I don't feel that that was of quality, what have you, that's fine. But it's when we go to the point of trolling and just to cause, you know, hardship and chaos in people's lives just for the hell of it because you think it's funny, that's when we're crossing the line there. And certainly Devon Dudley knocked it out of the park with that point. Good stuff there. I got some breaking news for you here, Devon. AEW Dynamite. They managed to have their lowest rating ever. They averaged about 502,000 viewers, which is way, way, way down, not only from last week, but even compared to last year. It's the worst rating they've had in history. Let's just call it what it is. Worst in history. And what's interesting is that they normally have the Big Bang Theory that leads into AEW Dynamite, which, you know, when the TV channel switches from Big Bang Theory, which is a rerun, at 7:59, it switches over to 8 p.m. when Dynamite starts. A lot of those folks who were watching Big Bang Theory, they've stuck around. So AEW has been using these folks and saying, hey, you know, they watch our show. Technically not true, which is why there's always such a major drop-off in the first quarter hour compared to the rest of the show because, you know, a lot of those folks are not AEW fans. So now here we are where there was no Big Bang Theory this past Wednesday, which was also Juneteenth. No Big Bang Theory to lead in, and AEW just completely in the toilet. It's clear that they are slipping, and it's not because of a lack of talent. Something else is amiss here. Anyways, Devon, I want to get your take on this here. What are your thoughts on AEW pulling in their worst rating ever at barely 500,000 viewers?
Well, you know, Tony Khan, I guess he hasn't been out there bashing WWE as of late after the comment he made during the NFL draft. But my thing is this. Instead of worrying about what the WWE is doing, worry about your own show. Worry about your own ratings. You know, here's the deal. Like I said before, and I'll say this again, there's a lot of guys in AEW I am friends with, and I've grown to be friends with. And they're a hell of a talent. Some I haven't met, some that I have, some that I've worked with. You know, but my thing is this. With all that great talent that is there in that company, and there's a lot of people that are great, why is it that those ratings are the way they are? And I'm sorry, after being in this business for 33 years, it's not the talent. And it starts right in the office. Here's what I'm going to say. When WWE was letting people go left and right during that harsh time, during the Vince era, and then all of a sudden, you know, because a lot of those guys weren't being used on TV and nothing like that because Vince didn't know what to do with them. The people in NXT, you know, the whole nine. And then Hunter comes in, he takes over, he brings them back, and now a lot of them are bigger stars than they ever were. It's the booking. It's the booking. Hunter knew what to do with them. Vince didn't. That's not a crap on Vince. It's just that he didn't know what to do with them. So, you know, somebody came in and did the right thing. My thing is, Tony might want to look in the mirror and see that it's not the talent that he has. It's him and whoever he has writing and doing whatever. That's what he should be looking at, because there's no reason with all that great talent that AEW has that the ratings should be that low, that the houses should be empty the way they are. There's no reason for it, because you have to agree with me. They have phenomenal talent over there. It's just that none of them are being used right, you know? And some of the guys who leave WWE to go there, you know, it's always good to have an alternate place to go, because when you get burnt out from one territory, you go to another to rebuild yourself, and then eventually you wind up going back to the original territory. I just hope a lot of them realize that when they do leave WWE, or unfortunately if they get let go, that you're going to be on, you know, the high end of things for the first month or 2 months, maybe even 3, and the next thing you know, you're put right back on the shelf again. That is something I don't understand. And I don't agree with. There's so much talent in that company that should be doing a lot more things than what they're doing in that company, and they're just not. So to me, again, it's not the talent, it's the people who are in charge that are doing it. And I've spoken to a lot of AEW people that I'm friends with, and they're just like shaking their heads. They're like, Devon, we know, we don't get it either. It just makes no sense. But a lot of them are there just taking the money. You know, Tony wants to throw out a boatload of money to people. He throws it out, and they're going to take it. You know, it's one of those things where why wouldn't you take the money if someone's going to give you, you know, if someone wants to give you $10 million to go and sit home and not be on their TV when you're supposed to be contributing to the company, why wouldn't you take the money? Why wouldn't you do it? I know freaking I would, you know, but, you know, I'd say, you don't have to put me on your TV. If you want to pay me a boatload of money to sit home and be with my family, then by all means, boo-boo, I'll take the check.
You know, it's interesting, Devon, you talking about your experience, history in the pro wrestling industry, which is, you know, over 30 years. Hall of Fame wrestler, most decorated tag team champion with Bubba. Now you've transitioned into being a fantastic trainer and coach for the next generation of stars. You've also been a backstage agent, you know, again, helping that next generation and really current generation of stars understand how to deliver matches that fans will give a damn about, which is really a skill to be able to do that. So kudos to you on that front. Something aired recently on A&E as part of their biography series. This is A&E biography, WWE Legends, the ECW episode, folks. So the episode literally is titled ECW, and this is on Season 4, Episode 10. So everybody listening right now, easy way for you to go look that up and check it out. You know, whether you have Sling or Xfinity, AT&T, whatever, I'm sure you have on demand, or just catch the rerun. But Season 4, Episode 10, biography, WWE Legends, ECW. Devon, you were all over this thing. Photos, video clips, you know, you even spoke about a few things. And it's funny, you and I had a conversation offline about this, and you said just watching that program evoked some memories, and you had some things to say about it. So we haven't delved too deep into the ECW stuff yet. We've been saving it, but now is a great time to start knocking on that door. So let's hear it, Devon. I mean, after watching that A&E biography, WWE Legends ECW episode there, what did you think? And really, what comes to mind?
Well, I will say this. I remember right before I got into ECW, you know, I was barely making it. I was working in the post office as a letter carrier and a mail sorter, and I was unloading trucks. And I remember, you know, I was married at the time to my twins, Terrence and Terrell, to their mom, and money was very, very tight. I remember not knowing how I was going to survive with a wife and twin boys. I mean, we were looking to do one baby, but when 2 came, it was like, oh my God, what are we going to do? And there were times where, and I'm dating my age here, but back when there were mannequins in the window of department stores to showcase whatever outfits they wanted to sell. And I remember a lot of times walking past that area and seeing something maybe for my wife or my kids and going, man, I wish I had the money to buy that. I had to go in the store and put it on what they used to call layaway. There was a layaway program. And, at that time, I didn't realize how special those moments were, because you really had to bust your behind to make the money to pay to get your wife or kids the present that you wanted to get them, whether it was for their birthday, Christmas, or what have you, anniversaries. And then I got to WWE and, from ECW. And again, I made good money my last 2 years in ECW, but it was coming up was very, very hard. And, when I got to WWE, now all of this money comes in, all the fame, all this stuff comes in. Now I can walk to a store and see something and go in there and just buy it. Didn't have to worry about putting it on layaway or anything like that. I just went in there and bought it. And to me, it got rid of the feeling that I used to get, like the appreciation that I would have after buying the gift or something like that in the window, because I worked so hard to get it. Whereas in WWE, I worked hard, but there was just so much money being made during that time, during the Attitude Era, that it wasn't that hard to do it. You could always appreciate something when you put the hard work into it, as opposed to just getting it, boom, okay, here you go. I miss those days. It brought back certain memories of that when I watched the documentary, because I knew how it was during that time for me, growing up in the business, trying to make it, trying to really, really establish myself, Bubba and myself, so it brought back so many memories. And then not to mention just being on the same accord as the fans. That was the one thing I loved about ECW when I think back after watching the documentary, how when you're in WWE, you're kind of like, how do I say it? You're kind of like separated from the fans. You're like this huge superstar, that's on Monday Night Raw and SmackDown and WrestleMania pay-per-views, and you can't be touched, Whereas in ECW, we were just like the regular fans, we, it was easy access to us. We had conversations. We weren't bigger than what we were during that time. In other words, we were all on the same level, believe it or not. We just happened to do things on TV and act like a bunch of fools beating the hell out of each other. But, that to me was very special, because I remember just meeting so many great people, watching that documentary, looking in the arena as they were showing and looking at the fans sitting down in the seats. I remember him, I remember them. And it started bringing back memories for me of conversations that I had with so many of them. And then, of course, you go to WWE and you don't have that intimacy like you did when you were with ECW. It's totally different. And a lot of faces that I see now, when I went back for WrestleMania 40, it was like they looked familiar, but I couldn't place it because it had been so many years since I seen them. So they had to refresh my memory. And some I felt bad because some I had really long, good relationships with, and I just didn't remember, And I'm like, forgive me, can you please remind me who you are and how we connected? And they would tell me, I'm like, oh my God, I'm so sorry. How the hell are you? How's the family? How's mom and dad? And things like that. And, it was special moments back then that will never be duplicated. And like I said, even with the money thing, not being able to buy, your family, whatever, jewelry, whatever, video game system, whatever, at the time, because you and everybody else in the company was trying to get ECW to a certain level where you could make that type of money. So the first 3 years of me being in ECW, it was rough. I didn't make that much. If I'm not mistaken, I believe I made $75 a night in ECW. Every time I wrestled, it was $75 a night. And we wrestled 2 nights a week with the fourth week of the month being off. So you're talking about $150 a week. I still had to work at the post office, because the company was just getting started and they didn't have the budget to pay the big money. And, we all understood that. And that's why we did what we did, to put our bodies on the line, to try to make that company not just some indie company that was here today and gone tomorrow, but a legit force to be reckoned with. We never thought in a million years that we would help change the face of professional wrestling. And we did. We did just that. I think the documentary was a tremendous documentary. I just wish they could have did a second or third series on it, because there was so much more to ECW than what you saw. There were so many people that are still alive today to tell you everything that was going on. I wish we could have seen more of the franchise Shane Douglas, Gary Wolf from the Pit Bulls, Mikey Whipwreck, go get Spike, Francine, all of these people that are still around, this, that can be able to tell these stories about how ECW really was and what it was about, how many tremendous matches there were that we had that made ECW the phenomenon that it is. That's what I wish that could have been told more of, but you can only do it so much in 42 minutes. I was happy that I was part of the 42 minutes that made that happen, but I wish that they would do maybe 2 or 3 more series on it, like an episode 2, episode 3, episode 4. There was so many, like, for instance, New Jack, the Gangsters. New Jack passed away, but Mustafa's still around. Why not get him? Why not interview him and find out his thoughts and what he thought about ECW and how it was with him and New Jack coming from Smoky Mountain, coming to ECW, working with the Public Enemy, working with John Cronus and Perry Saturn. And that's another name that was very integral in making ECW a success, and that was Perry Saturn. He's still around. Get his thoughts, interviews, because he was dead right in it. Little Guido. There's so many names that have stories to tell about ECW. And then some of the legends like Tommy Rich, that was there. I was happy with the documentary, but I was also saddened because there was so many people that we couldn't talk to in 42 minutes that needed to tell the story as well, So I just wish we would have had more time to be able to do that, or more episodes to be able to do that, because there was just so much more than what the fans saw on TV for that documentary. And I'll put it to you this way. If you watched ECW, then you understood it. If you were there, you definitely understood. But if you weren't, you would never understood, or I should say understand, why it was the way it was. ECW was a very special place that will never be duplicated. I don't care what people can say or try to re-innovate. It'll never be duplicated. You will never have the type of men and women that were in that company that were willing to put their bodies and souls on the line to make that company the number one company in the world. I see things that people do in other organizations, whether they emulate ECW's craziness, and sometimes it's taken way too far. There's no story behind it. There's nothing behind it. They just use light bulbs and stupid things like that just to get the pop from the crowd. And I'm like, the thing about ECW is that we told a story and you invested it in that story. That's what made ECW matches so good, because we told stories. Were there matches that didn't have stories, that was just chaotic? Absolutely there were. I'm not denying that. But think about all the matches, with us 3Ding Beulah McGillicuddy and telling that story. It was stuff like that that made you hate the Dudleys. The people were very invested in the stories. And you know what? It's funny to me that a certain person who owns a certain company now used to be sitting in the ECW arena, holding up signs and cheering everybody on. I guess that makes him qualified to run a huge company the way he does. And I'm not knocking him. I listen, when I met him, I thought he was a great guy. I thought he was a little off, but I thought he was a great guy. I thought that, he was a little out there, which a lot of people are if you're in this business. But I don't think reality sits in with him very well when he starts talking about the business. I think he looks at it still from a fan's point of view. And that's fine, but you have to have somebody to be able to pull you back and to say, hey, listen, you're not a fan anymore. You're an owner. Let's start doing it the way we should do it. And he doesn't have that person.
That's a great point. And I think that that's a lesson for everybody, whether you're a promoter or a vendor or somebody who is doing anything related to pro wrestling. Once you're in any capacity, you're in. You're not a fan anymore. You shouldn't be conducting yourself like a regular fan. You shouldn't be sitting there trying to hustle to take pictures and get autographs and you want to hug this one and all this nonsense. It's like you're in. You, in some capacity, are part of the club. So act like you've been there and act like a professional. It's fascinating to see how many people are out there carrying on, similar to Tony Khan, where it's just like, buddy, what are you doing? You know what I mean? There's business trying to be conducted here. I digress. Folks, you know that here on Devon and the Duke, we've been a slow burn. Really wanted you to get acclimated to listening to Devon talk about his life and, things that are happening currently and what have you. Now, we feel it's time for Devon to really lean back in the chair and start telling some stories and discussing things that you want to hear about from his illustrious career. So certainly you can shoot me a message on social media or you can email dukelovesrasslin@gmail.com. Let me know. What would you like to hear Devon go long form about? Because there's so many things to touch upon, whether it's from ECW, WWE, TNA, whatever. This guy's been around for so many different things. In fact, Devon, I'll tell you a funny story here, and I want to get your take on this. There is somebody who makes no bones about the fact that at a certain period of time, they were supplying the party favors for a lot of the boys and the ladies in the wrestling industry. And this somebody, when they heard the first episode of Devon and the Duke, they hit me up and they said, hey, Duke, you doing that show with Devon? I said, yeah. He never did any drugs. He was as square can be. Devon Dudley, no matter what, and it was always around him, but he personally never partake. He's a square. I thought that was interesting, Devon, just the fact that this person was so adamant about pointing out the fact that you're a square. So let me get your take on this. Kind of a change of pace for a second here. What do you think when you hear that?
Well, and a lot of do, like we said earlier, my upbringing, how I was brought up. I was told that you didn't need drugs, you needed God. That was my drug of choice. And I'm not going to sit here and say I was the perfect guy because I wasn't. Did I slip in other ways? Yes. Was it drugs? No. Did I have my fun? Absolutely I did. But it was never to the point where it was alcohol or drugs. Did I have my nights going out with the fellas, having a couple of beers and a couple of shots? Absolutely I did. Did I sit there taking 9 to 10 to 15 Somers and passing out in a diner and having somebody carry me with throw up all over me? No, I didn't do that. Did I do cocaine? No. Did I do, LSD, angel dust, heroin, or anything like that? No, I never did anything like that. I was very I was very happy and proud that I never touched that stuff and never did it. Was it offered to me? Yes. But I was always scared about the lingering effects. I mean, look, I'm huge on medical marijuana now. I love medical marijuana. I have my license here in Florida. After my stroke, I decided to invest in that as opposed to painkillers because I didn't want to touch any painkillers, especially after my back surgery, where there was stuff that was offered to me and I said, nope, don't want it. I said, all I need to do is renew my medical marijuana license and I'm good to go. I was like, at least I know with weed, I can smoke it, kick out, and be good. The other drugs, not so much. So for the person that said I was a square, thank you very much. I appreciate that because I pride myself on that. And again, I'm not saying I was a saint because I wasn't. There were other demons that I was fighting, like women. I'll be the first to say, I love the women. And that was, my drug, back then when I first started because, I really, really enjoyed the lifestyle that I was having during that time, the fame, being on TV, everybody flocking to you and this and that and blah, 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 so I enjoyed myself with that, but never to the point where it was drug related or alcohol.
You hear how candid he is, brothers and sisters. This is what we're talking about. For the first time, you're going to hear Devon Dudley really dig in and open up about some of these subjects. Let's keep this train rolling, Devon. We kind of have like a rapid fire situation going on right now. ECW. We've seen it in documentaries. We read about it in the books. Paul Heyman has gone on record himself that ECW had major financial issues and everybody wasn't always paid on time and things of that nature. So let me ask you directly here, Devon. Did you personally ever had any issues with payouts in ECW? Was your money ever short?
No. I will say Bubba and myself never had a bounce check. Were there times where we left the arena not having a check and Paulie said, I promise you it'll be in the mail. One of his true words, but he did. I worked in the office, in the ECW office, myself, Dreamer, and Little Guido. We were the ones that the fans, when they would call the office for merchandise, we were the ones that were answering the phones, putting the T-shirts or whatever merchandise that we were selling at the time in the envelopes and dropping them off at the post office to give to the fans. So I would see Paulie. So with him saying, if I didn't get my check or what have you on the last day of the tour, he always made good with it. I never ever had the want or need for a check when I was in ECW. Paul Heyman took care of me. I think I can say the same for Bubba. He took care of both of us. Not that he was playing favoritisms or anything like that, but we did not have that problem. And I'm blessed to say that I'm happy that was the case. And I feel bad that some people did have to endure that because some people have families. So they did feel the financial burden of the company hitting a low at one point, but I got to say that it never happened to myself or Bubba. And, again, I have nothing but respect for Paul Heyman. I always said this, Paul Heyman made me a star coming from ECW. Vince McMahon made me a superstar.
One subject that a lot of fans have reached out and asked that you open up about is New Jack. We brought his name up earlier, but New Jack from the Gangsters, before he passed away, he had some pretty disparaging things to say about you in a number of shoot interviews, Devon. And I don't recall you ever publicly opening up about New Jack and your side of some of the things that he was saying. So I'll just ask you directly. Was there actual beef between you and New Jack? And if so, why? What happened, man?
Yeah, there was real beef. It never came to blows. When the beef happened, we had left and went to WWE. It really wasn't with Bubba. It was with me. And it was all over a certain female. New Jack was talking to this female at one point, and they had broken up. It was like 3 or 4 years later. I wound up going to WWE. Me and the girl bumped into each other. One thing led to another, and we wind up talking to each other. New Jack found out about it and got mad. And I remember going, Jack, talking, I was like, why are you angry? You hadn't talked to this girl in 3 or 4 years. You know, I mean, and the way you left off, it was real bad. In other words, you know, he didn't like her. He didn't want anything to do with her. You know, he would always pawn her off. In other words, you know, he would leave and go, hey, can you stay with her and keep her occupied until I come back? You know, and anybody would be like, yeah, sure. Nice girl, no issues whatsoever, but she wasn't ready for New Jack. And it just so happened that her and I started, you know, talking and meeting up. And next thing you know, we dated for almost maybe about a year or so. New Jack found out about it and was extremely angry. And that was where the beef came in. So, and I remember going a couple of times in interviews and I said, I'm not sure why this man is totally angry with me. When I approached him with the situation at first and I said, hey, listen, I was like, you know, me and this person is hanging out, you know, I kind of like, I'm digging it. Do you mind if we, you know, start talking? And his exact words were, I don't care. Go ahead, do what you want to do. And I was like, okay. But to me, it was kind of like with a female. You know how a female, you know, you go to a female and you go, babe, listen, I'm gonna go hang out with the fellas. Are you cool with that? And she goes, oh yeah, go ahead, go. Yeah, you're cool. What time are you coming back? Oh, I'll be back about 11:30, 12. All right, cool, have fun. And then you come back in the house and she mad as hell. She mad as hell because she went out on a date. I mean, you went out hanging out with the fellas when you should have been home. You should have been home. You left me home, blah, blah, blah. And that's the way I took it. That's the way I felt. And I told Jack, I said, listen, I'm sorry if you feel that way. You know, after everything, when he started saying that, I said, but, you know, I don't need to check in with you. I didn't do anything wrong to you. I said, I didn't stab you in the back. I came to you like a man and said I was interested in talking to this person. Do you have an issue with it? Because you have been gone, you have been separated with her for like 3, almost 4 years now. You moved on, you got married, you got a wife who had a kid and everything. You had a whole life. And he didn't see it that way. And then, you know, I think this was only a cover-up where when me and Bubba, Vince McMahon came to us and said he didn't want us to wear the and overalls anymore because it represented ECW. He wanted a WWE feel, a WWE look. So we were, you know, scratching our heads trying to come up with something. And then somebody said, why don't you do fatigues? And at first we thought, we were saying, oh, you mean like the Bushwhackers? And I was like, yeah, the Bushwhackers. But, you know, me and Bubba came up with the different color, not the green that they normally, you know, have for fatigues, but the different color, the red, the green, the yellow. You know, we came up with that. We were like, all right, cool. So we'll do that. The fatigues was something that WWE basically wanted us to do. And we weren't going to tell them no. You know, the idea came up and they wanted something different than ECW. So that was it. You know, I think Jack didn't really have a lot of, how do I say this? I think Jack lost touch with reality for a little bit because, again, he wasn't the first person to wear fatigues. You know, a lot of it, we were afraid that not that they were going to look at us like the gangsters, but they were going to look at us like the Bushwhackers because we didn't want that because we wanted to be a serious team. And of course, we know that when the Bushwhackers came to WWE in the 80s, 90s, late 80s going into the early 90s, they were kind of like, fun loving for kids and stuff. And we didn't want that because we wanted to be the hardcore Dudleys from ECW being known for. So that was one. And then the issue with the music, I hate pyro. I don't like pyro at all. It was WWE's idea to have the pyro come in. Now, New Jack's music that he came out to in the Gangsters, America's Most Wanted with Ice Cube and Dr. Dre, in the very beginning of the song, it had like a missile dropping. And of course, the beat hit, and of course, the rap came in. So that wasn't our idea. That was Jim Johnson, who was head of the music department at the time. We were called to go to gorilla position to basically, when we walked into the building that day, and they said Dudleys, they want to see you in gorilla. So we said, all right. So we went to gorilla. It was Jerry Briscoe. He was like, hey, Dudleys, we got new music for you and a video package. We want you to check it out. We were like, okay. And then we have pyro as well. So I was like, pyro? I was like, I can't wait to see this. And they did the pyro. They hit the music. We listened for a little bit, and then we walked out and we watched the video package that they did. And we were like, okay, that sounds like, it could be something. And it wound up being something. The only thing that we had control of music-wise and how it went was Power Man 5000, when the Dudley Boys got back together in 2002 after me being on SmackDown doing Reverend Devon and him being on Raw doing Bubba Ray Dudley. That was the only time we were able to do that. They got the rights to Power Man 5000. They paid for it, and we used it. So that was the only thing that we had say-so in, was that particular song. Other than that, everything else, we didn't have any say-so.
I have never heard you tell that story before, but wow. Definitely sheds a lot of light and explains why New Jack was carrying on the way that he did about you. And again, God rest his soul, New Jack. Not speaking ill of the dead, but just closing the loop on something, providing some facts, the other side of the story, so to speak, from Devon Dudley here.
Yeah, I mean, again, I think a lot of it had to stem from the girl, who, we didn't, we only were together for like a year or so. She went and got married and had a kid, had me as the godfather of the kid and the whole nine, good friends with the family and the whole nine. So it was never any animosity with me, with Jack, with this. It was more on him because he took it personally. Again, I go to you and I say, are you okay with this? And, I gave them the respect in doing that. They had been gone. They had been done for about 3 or 4 years. Again, I'll say it again. He moved on. He got married. The woman that he married had a kid, and they were raising the kid the whole nine. Why do you care? And that's the part that always, made me think, what the hell, Jack? But it was New Jack at the time, and, you just had to, deal with it, and the social media was eating it up. They were instigating it. They were feeding into it. So whenever Jack would say something, on social media or what have you, oh, did you hear what New Jack said about you? Oh, he ate you up, Devon, and blah, blah, blah. Okay. And it got to the point where I left it alone for a little bit. And then all of a sudden I got tired of the nonsense. And I was just like, okay, enough's enough. I'm not doing this no more. I was like, I'm going to fire back. I'm going to say something because I've had it. And that's when I did. And he really got pissed off when we did the song, We Had Enough. Because Jim Johnson came to me and said, Devon, is there anything that you want to add into the song that we just did in the studio? So I said, yeah, I would like to add something. So knowing that he was a big Tupac fan, I took something from Tupac's song and I made it about Jack. And if I'm not mistaken, I believe it said, all these other wrestlers want to be like us, trying to take us down with just one punch. Now you wonder why me and Bubba blew you out. Next time grown folks are talking, bitch, close your mouth. Now you're looking like New Jack, flabby and sick, trying to play a hate on our shit. We had enough. And it went out, through WWE, and WWE, is a big platform, so everybody heard it. And he lost his shit. He fucking lost his shit. He went into the studio with Bootsy Collins, and decided that he was going to do a rebuttal to it, but it never got off because he didn't have the same media type of attention that WWE had. And that album that we did with the WWE it did very well. And so a lot of people were talking about it, So, it didn't get that. The critics ate it up. In other words, they didn't like it, but a lot of the fans did. So his song did not get anywhere near the near play that the WWE's version of We Had Enough did. And that's how that went down.
Well, there it is, folks. And you hear how candid, once again, Devon Dudley is about this stuff. Reach out. Duke Loves Rasslin on social media. DukeLovesRasslin@gmail.com. Let me know what else do you want to hear Devon go long form on. We'll dig up real deep and tell these stories. Certainly. Devon, if they want to reach out directly to you to provide some suggestions, what's the best way they can reach out to you? And also any aspiring wrestlers out there, if they want to check out Devon Academy, plug away, man. What's the best way that they can get in touch?
Well, they can reach me at Testify Devon on Instagram, Testify Devon on Twitter. I am huge on Instagram. I think I talk to a lot of my followers on Instagram more than I do Twitter. They can find me there. You can also find me at DDA, Devon Dudley Academy, which is my wrestling school I have in Winter Park, which is only 3 minutes away from the Performance Center. We're producing tomorrow's stars and getting them ready. That's one thing I'm very proud of, is that we have a lot of students that came out of our school that you're now seeing on WWE TV. So, again, I can't be more than happy and proud of them, and, very happy. One is Dexter Loomis. He's one of my students, love him to death. I think I mentioned this last week. Jessica Carr is another one. Also, we call them Tafita and Partey, Haku's boys, the one that's with Solo Sikoa now. They're ours. Bubba and I trained them before they went to Japan. So we have a lot of history. Leva, Blue Pants is ours. Sempintico, who's in AEW now. Jonathan Cruz, he's ours. God, there's so many. Josh Dawkins, who's in NXT right now, he's ours. And Lacey, what's her name? Oh, God. I know her as Lacey because that's her real name, but she's in WWE with, I always mix this up. I don't know why. Carter. She's part of a tag team.
Caden Carter.
Damn it, I can't remember that name for nothing. But her real name is Lacey, so I always call her Lacey, and the fans go, what? Who? But yeah, Caden Carter is mine. And again, there's a lot of other people that are out there that is mine as well. So, our schools speaks for itself on the people that we produce and get out of there. And if you want to, become that WWE wrestler and you want to make it happen, you can always contact me at Devon Dudley Academy, or call us at area code 407-790-7800.
Brothers and sisters, I want to thank you for joining us for another episode of Devon and the Duke. And until next time, Devon, take us home.
Do unto others as you would want others to do unto you. That's the quote that I live by, and that's the quote that I love.
This is Tony Schiavone, and we're desperately out of time on Duke Loves Rasslin.